What do you do when you have 3 very good mopping robots sitting around your house? Well, you try a mopping challenge. Challenge 1 is going to be wet mopping. That means I put some stains on the floor and I don't let them dry. Here we have some milk, some wine, and some butter that I just took straight from the stick and smeared all over the floor in that one spot. Now, all of these stains were measured from a cup, so in some of these it may look like there's more or less wine or more or less milk, but that's because of the way I spilled it, not how much is actually there. So first we've got the Narwal T10. Now this is an interesting robot. I reviewed this on my channel. I'll put a link to that review. And it's a very interesting robot because it's a hybrid robot. The vacuum cleaner has no spinning main brush, so it's kind of useless. I mean, it does okay on hard floors, but it's a very good mop primarily because it can get anywhere in your house. It can navigate thresholds. It's got LiDAR, you know, it maps. It can go anywhere. Like if you want something that actually mops your entire house without any problems, this is it. And the way this works is it doesn't carry its own water, so it'll go into that base and it'll saturate those spinning little mop pads on the bottom, and then when it runs out of water, it'll go back and, you know, get wet again, for lack of a better way to put it. But if you want to know more about that, watch my review. For these tests, I recorded myself examining the results with audio live so that there would be no confusion as far as me not remembering correctly. So here is the first one. A little sticky. The butter surprisingly actually completely gone. The wine is the worst one. I can still feel it, so I'm gonna have to steam mop this before the next robot goes. The milk, a little sticky. So this didn't do a perfect job, but then again, I didn't expect it to because this is a lot of stuff. You could see where I smeared it. It looked good before I smeared it, but once I started smearing around, you could see what it left. So I'm going to steam mop this and test the next robot. But again, this is great. Like the amount of stuff I spilled, this is what some people call a stress test. And I guess it passed. The mopping pads actually look like after this first test. And you can see they're pretty clean because this thing does clean itself. So if you want to know more about that, again, watch my review. So here I am steam mopping, make sure the test is fair. And again, the tests, except for the butter, I guess, which I just did by hand, but everything else is measured from a cup. So if it looks like there's less of it, it's because it didn't spray as much all over the place. Maybe I spilled it more carefully, which you could say compromises the test results, but I mean, not really. It's the same amount of material. It can either pick it up or it can't. If it's spread out more, I don't think it hurts or helps that much. So this robot only does one pass by default. And one thing I want to mention about the T10, it doesn't have like specific area cleaning. It cleans, you know, you can set rooms. So that robot, like this will clean that specific area and nothing else. Whereas the T10, I have to like block it in with chairs and stuff. So that was kind of annoying. So if you see me chasing that thing around, or if you see chairs lying on the floor that are absent in for these other robots, then that's why. So this robot missed a spot because on my map, as I'll show you in the right there, it thinks there's something there, so it avoided it. I guess somebody left like a box or whatever there. And just to make it fair, because that's where the butter is, I wanted to, I had the spot clean it so that he would cover this, you know, the entire area, same as all the other robots. All right, so it is a little sticky, but less so. The butter is gone, just like the other one. And it's actually a lot less sticky. You can see from my attempts to smear it, judging on the other one. So this did a better job. Not by a lot, but significantly. The milk is completely gone. I don't even feel anything here. So as far as pure mopping goes, the Braava Jet M6 is a little bit better than a Narwal. I'm just not sure that its lack of maneuverability and clumsy navigation make up for it. But if you want just something that's the best mop all around, so far, this seems to be it. Let's see how the iLife does. Actually, before we do that, let's take a look at the mopping pad. Looks kind of greasy, but not that bad. Alright, it's the iLife's turn. So this one also doesn't have like specific zone cleaning. This one's actually very hard to contain. This is the worst robot in terms of navigation. It's supposed to, you could tell it to do like the limited area cleaning in the app, but it's, you know, you kind of have to guess at the size of the area. iLife created a very good robot and then gave it like basically an almost useless app. But even without that, if you just treat this as an appless robot and use the app to like change its features, it's a good mopping robot. For example, it'll mop your entire house, or you know, most of it fairly competently, and then you could move it room to room and it'll do that. And the reason, like, you might be asking, well, why should I even bother doing that? Why don't I just buy one of the other robots I can actually navigate? Well, spoiler alert, you're about to find out why. So again, we're going to take a look at what everything looks like on the inside. Pretty clean brush, just like the others. Well, less so than the Narwal and more so than the Braava Jet. Alright, so this is odd. There's some wine here, but there's no stickiness anywhere else. The butter is gone. That's just a little water. It hasn't dried up. Ah, a tiny bit here, but it looks like it actually missed that. Well, so far this is the best job. I guess this is the best mop out of the three, and also the least useful because of how awkward it is to navigate and how much you have to do to get it ready. But as far as pure mopping goes, this is a winner. It's interesting how, although this left less wine than the M6 did, it left a greater concentration in this area. So, interesting, but still the winner. So as you can see, the winner by a considerable margin is the iLife W450. And again, this is a mopping test, not a navigation or anything else test. So let's move on to challenge number 2, which is dry mopping. So here, it's the same kind of stuff, except there's road salt added to the mix, and I let it dry. So there's milk, wine, and road salt, or is that coffee stains? I don't even remember what that is. I think it's coffee stains. But whatever it is, it was drying for about an hour for each test. And first up is the Narwal T10. The road salt is interesting because every robot has struggled with this in the past. Like when you track it in from outside during the winter, especially if you have a black floor, it gets everywhere. So again, the road salt is up top, then coffee stains, or milk stains, whatever, some kind of dried liquid stains, and then wine. So we'll see how this one does. Now this is one of those instances where it did not return to wet its pads the way it was supposed to, and this rarely happens. It did very little, actually. I can feel all the stickiness still here. The coffee too. Yeah, you could see the smears. And the salt, it pretty much just moved it around. So for dry mopping, at least when it doesn't clean its brushes between passes, it's not very good. But I'm going to let it do another pass. I mean, why not? If it had decided to clean its brushes like it did during the wet mopping, between the two passes, it would have done a better job. So let's see what it would have done. Okay, so I'm going to let this thing do one other pass, so it'll be 3 total, and the others all do 1 pass each, so I'm going to let them have another go at this also if they don't do well on the first try. But this is going to be 3 passes total, So, and this time it did clean and wet its brushes, so let's see what it does. Alright, so after 2.5 passes, I'm not going to call that last one a full pass, there's still, you can see the smears, there's still some stickiness where the wine is, also where the coffee is, and a lot of it where the salt is. So, for dry mopping, for picking up, dried on stains, the Narwal is not a very good mop. I don't even think a 4th pass would have made much difference here. Alright, let's let the Braava Jet have a go. Now, when I said 2.5 passes for the Narwal, I meant 1.5, because 1 pass for the Narwal is 2 passes, 1 normal pass, so 3 total runs would be 1.5 passes. That's what I meant to say. So now this is interesting here because this came in dry. Because I had let the floor, I mentioned before that I let the floor dry between these tests, so it took like an hour or longer. So by that time, the pad on the mop had dried out. So when it came in there, this thing takes a while because it sprays water, and then the pad picks up the water, and eventually the pad gets wet. So unless you keep the pad wet on this thing, or start with a wet pad, at first it's not going to do a very good job, like for the first, I don't know, minute of mopping. And then once the pad gets wet, then it's great. iRobot should do something like that, like have it spray a bunch of water when it first starts. So let's see the results. Alright, so where it came in mostly dry, you can see it really didn't really do much of anything. But unless you're judging this specifically as a spot cleaner and not as a mop in general, you shouldn't look at this. In general, it did a better job on 1 pass than the Narwal did. There is some stickiness, but not a lot, especially where the wine was the most. Where the coffee is very little, and the salt is pretty much gone. Okay, there's just a tiny bit of salt left. So what we're going to do now, while it's still wet, we're going to see what it could do with 2 passes, since I still have stains here, and since we did let the Narwal do 3 passes. So let's see. Now, it should be obvious at this point that the Braava Jet is a better mop than the Narwal overall. But I don't own a Narwal. I own the Braava Jet. The Narwal was something I borrowed from a friend. So why don't I own the Narwal? Well, because it's $1,000. I don't need a mop that badly, especially one that isn't, the best mop. But if I had to pick one and they were the same price, even though the Braava Jet is a better mop, because of the Narwal's superior navigation and because it can cross thresholds, unlike this thing, effortlessly, unless they're, ridiculous. But normal thresholds, like the kind I have, it can get over them effortlessly, and it could mop my entire house. And all I do is, dump the dirty water and put in clean water. It's really easy to maintain. It's just an effortless robot. It's not the best mop, but I think it's actually the best mopping robot. Alright, so now that it's dry, that's actually pretty good. I don't feel, well, that's a tiny little bit of coffee, I guess. Here's a little bit, no, it just hasn't dried yet, okay. Oh, it didn't quite get the salt over here. I wonder why, because it did go here. So it left that, but the rest of the salt is gone. I don't really feel, I mean, the floor is slightly sticky, very, very slightly. It's a really good job overall, so I'm very satisfied. Alright, it's the iLife's turn. As you can see, like I'm not going to spoil who won yet, the dry mopping challenge and overall winner, but you could see that the iLife is picking up things. I mean, you can't always tell because when things are wet, you can't tell how sticky it is, but you can see it's picking things up really well. And this is the 450, not the 400, so it's got the app, and I've got this set on the slowest possible movement speed, the fastest burst speed, and 50% water. This robot is very frustrating to me because it has so much potential for navigation, for mapping, because it doesn't map. It maintains an internal one-time use map, and then just for that job, and then it's useless. But it could be so much more. All right, so this is 1 pass. It did leave some wine, but cleaned up most of the rest. There's some, actually it struggled with the wine. Left a bit of the coffee and got most of the salt, but not all. So it did about as well or as poorly as the Braava Jet M6. Let's give it another pass and see what happens. Now, it did about as well as the Braava Jet M6 with one pass. Remember, the Braava Jet had multiple passes. So we're going to let this thing go one more time, and then we'll see. And to continue my previous rant, iLife created a very, very good mopping robot, and then kind of just, I don't know who they hired to do the app, or maybe the app was an afterthought, but they kind of dropped the ball there. If you're going to go through the trouble of building such an excellent robot, I mean, for crying out loud, make a good app. Alright, it hasn't completely finished drying, but I've got to run, pick something up. It's perfect. I don't feel anything. Completely perfect. So none of the robots were able to take care of this stuff with their normal pass. Only one of them took care of everything. I'll touch the wet parts. I don't feel anything. Only one of them was able to take care of absolutely everything on its second pass. So once again, the W450 is the best mopping robot, but not necessarily the best robot. So there you have it. The absolute best mop is the W450, followed by the M6. But the best mopping robot, overall, I'm still sticking with the Narwal, just because of how it can navigate. It just makes it more useful. Like the W450, yeah, you could take it from room to room, and that's fine. If you want to use it that way, it's a great robot. The M6, in theory, can navigate, but it's got V-Slam, which is just junk, and it can't get over thresholds very well. So, I mean, I only have it mopping my kitchen. That's how useless it is. If it crosses the threshold to the rest of my house, it can't get back. So, the real winner here is the T10, but if you want the absolute best mop, it's the iLife 450, and if you want kind of a compromise between the two, then it's the Braava Jet M6. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Mike, and this is Mr. Roombottom.